Okay, brilliant. Hello, everyone. I'm not doing the intro to this one, but I just want to say hi to everyone and thank everyone for all the amazing talks today. But also, I wanted to give everyone a bit of an update for our donation total so far. So we're currently on 7,291. We've had something like 80 something donations or something like that today. It's been absolutely amazing. And I just want to thank everyone who has donated or participated or asked a question. I'm absolutely hyped for this talk, but it's not my job to introduce that. That's down to Andy. So I'm going to bow out and just say thank you and over to you.
Hey everyone, welcome to the last talk of the day. We've got Mr. TJ Null, also known as Tony. He's going to be talking about from mantra to mindset, preparing for the OSCP journey. And TJ and I have known each other for quite a while, and he told me his as much of his talk synopsis is amazing. Essentially, he said he does hacks and things. So over to you, TJ.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction, Zephyr. Yes, hang on a second. Let me go ahead and throw that up here real quick. I totally forgot about that.
You only had one job, TJ. It's just one.
It's okay. It's the last talk. We're gonna have some fun, right?
It was going so well.
Yeah, we were doing really well.
All right.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Can you all see that just to make sure? Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So Zephyr gave a little bit of introduction. I'm just going to go a little bit more in depth about who I am and what I do. So my name is TJ Null, also known as Tony Panarero. I am the community manager for offensive security. So what I try to do is I try to bring out the communication, the relations, for you guys as students, future students, or even anybody who really likes to get in the offensive side, try to work with offensive security or communicate with them. Part of my spare time too as well, because I like to do a lot of hacks, right? I also teach at, I'm an adjunct professor at Frederick Community College. I teach the ethical hacking course and this course is there, and also run the cyber team that's there as well. So a lot of big things I've been doing in the past. I've loved competing in cyber competitions. I've done at least 245 in the past 5 years. And I also like hosting cyber competitions for all ages, wherever they are, just so they can get into cybersecurity or have an interest or peak in it. Also like attending security conferences, moderated some communities as well too, like NetSec Focus and Many Hats Club. But outside of InfoSec, because you have to have hobbies outside, right, of doing all cyber and anything InfoSec wise, is I like to do a lot of hiking and traveling, play lacrosse, and play video games as well. So getting into this talk, right? So what's the agenda we're going to be talking about here? So for some of you that know the OSCP, you guys are going to be able to get a little bit of rundown on this. For others, I'm going to go ahead and explain what it is. We're going to talk about the course prerequisites, overview of the course, what the new lab environment is like, what the new course material is like. Also some tips for the exam, also how to prepare for it, and tips of when you are taking as well too. And then some resources that I prepared along the way as well too to help you on your journey. And any questions or answers we have after the talk, we can definitely talk about that. So for some of you, what is the OSCP, right? So the Offensive Security Certified Professional is one of the most technical and most challenging certifications for information security professionals that is out there. In order to be certified, you actually have to take the penetration testing with Cali course and also take a 24-hour exam. During that 24 hours, if you go ahead and actually score the amount of points, you also have to write a report as well too after that 24 hours. So it's a big certification, I think, if you're trying to get into pen testing or into InfoSec. And I think it's also good that even blue teamers like SOC analysts, incident responders, incident handlers should also be able to take this course as well too to get understanding of what hackers do, how to be able to build that hacker mindset as well too. So why did I pursue OSCP? When I was a senior in high school, I was taking a lot of computer classes actually. We had this school here called the Career Technology Center. And in that center, they actually gave me my first ever security class, which I ever learned. And one of the things that they dropped on my desk was a Backtrack 5 cookbook written by William Pritchett, and also the Backtrack 5 R3 CD. And so that was our learning material basically. And I went through the book and I went through the CD, just learning all the different tools, the techniques, the methodologies. And I really had a passion for this. I'm like, this is something I really wanted to do. And it took a long way to get to where I was to do that. And so I try to find ways of learning new material, seeing where I could be able to get more understanding of Backtrack, how to actually get certified as well too into it. And the first thing I saw was on Offensive Security's webpage, penetration testing with Backtrack, and of course the OSCP. So going through the time of it, I was 16 at the time. I couldn't be able to take it. You had to be 18. to be able to take the course itself. So I thought, all right, there's going to be some stuff I can prepare for and get some prerequisites, right? So my journey started basically like this. PWP, I'm prepping for it. I'm going to get ready for it. Well, things kind of changed. The course actually released PWK. And then from there, I actually took the old version of PWK, went through the actual labs, went through the course material. The course had to do the try harder moments, right? To be able to get to that top of the mountain just to earn the OSCP. So going into the course prerequisites, right? So how do you know you're ready? What should you do to decide to prepare for the course, right? So there's a couple things that we ask that you prepare for or have at least an understanding of before you start the course. One of the things, of course, is TCP networking fundamentals, right? Know your IP addresses, know your subnetting, how network traffic is sent and received, and also the different types of protocols, right? Know your operating systems, know how Windows works, know how Linux systems work. Also have some understanding of programming languages. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to be fully experienced writing in Python, writing in PowerShell, writing in Bash, but at least have an understanding of how to read the code, how to review the code, and then see what changes you need to make to actually make the code work for what you're trying to assess in the lab or even in the course material. And note taking is super important. Documentation is an important key that I always encourage people to do whenever they're going through this course. Now, I've also provided some note-taking tools. Joplin is one of my favorite tools now. I really like how you could be able to write everything down in Markdown. It has a really nice reading preview. And the other thing too that's really cool about it, it has a synchronization tool as well too, that you can actually go ahead and sync your notes into a local cloud storage, a file share, or even onto Dropbox or in the cloud as well too. Before I took the OSCP, I also used Cherry Tree, and I was okay with it. I really wasn't a huge fan of it, and Microsoft OneNote as well too, and also Typora, which also is another Markdown reader and writer as well too that you can use. So the overview of the course, what has changed? What's new in the new updates, right? So pretty much all the topics that you see here have been updated. The new topics that have been added is Active Directory attacks and PowerShell Empire. The big ones that have been revamped and updated have been web application attacks, privilege escalation. The buffer overflow section is entirely new as well too, basically explaining and walking through more information on how to actually, find the find the vulnerabilities in it and also how to exploit it as well too. So what's the new lab environment like? So for me, this was probably the fun part about the course, is that when you've gone through the material, when you reviewed all the material, then you get to go ahead and go into the lab. So the lab now has 75 machines. Almost all the machines are pretty much up to date, running from Windows Server 2012 to 2019, Windows 10 boxes. And on the Linux side, you also have from Debian 9 to Debian 10, and also with Red Hat systems that have been updated as well too. In the new lab environment, when you're going through the course material, you'll actually be provided with the following boxes. You'll be provided with the Windows 10 box, a Windows Server 2016 box, and a Debian test box as well too. And the lab is now broken into 4 networks. Yes, back then in the old PWK, you actually had a student lab, which is a public network, the IT department, and the development network and administration network. Now you also have a new section called the Sandbox Network, where you can actually go ahead in the last section of PWK, you actually can go through a full assessment. And in that full assessment, you have the Sandbox Network there where you can actually walk through what we basically go through during assessment in this Sandbox Network, which is really cool. So here's a basic look of what the old network looks like and what the new network looks like now, of what they've been added, and which is really cool on what they've done as well too, for you to be able to build your practical skills and knowledge, when you're going through the course itself. So what do I recommend for a lab setup, when you're preparing for the course itself? Definitely have VMware Workstation or VMware Player, and also have Kali Linux. Now, you can be able to use your own tools. You can be able to use VirtualBox if you want it for your hypervisor or any other hypervisor that is out there. But the only reason why I recommend using VMware Workstation or VMware Player and Kali Linux is because the student admins will be able to support you better with what's going on. It's really cool to see also what you're going to be using and what you're going to be preparing as well through the course itself. Now, the new PWK, actually, you can use a standard Kali Linux 64-bit machine or 32-bit machine that's there. For people that are using the old PWK and going through the old labs, you can use the old PWK image that we have that's already set up there. And then, of course, also on your local systems, have a Windows 10 box or Windows 7 box. And I also recommend having Immunity Debugger on both those systems. And the reason why I say this, because in case you're testing any exploits in the lab itself that you want to test locally, you have those boxes there. You have those systems there that you can test those vulnerable applications to see if your exploit code or if your configurations are actually true when you're going through the lab itself. So assessing the PWK lab network. A lot of people will probably tell you how they approached the lab, how they went through the environment, and there's many different ways that you can go through it. And also, some people have also said they finished it really at this time or at this time, right? My recommendation is to you is that everybody goes through this lab differently. Everybody goes through the course differently. And I say it depends on you if you want to be able to take the time and also to go through the material properly before you jump into the lab or jump through different chapters of the material, right? This isn't going to be a sprint. This is a marathon for you to go ahead and go through the material, learn it, and understand it properly when you go through. So when I did it, it took me 28 days and 127 hours to go through the systems that were in the lab. Some of the systems that I went through were pretty easy. One day I would pwn 17 boxes in 14 hours. And another day, it would take me 2 to 3 days just to pwn one box. Each system has its own difficulty set up by each machine. And some of the systems you'll actually have to pivot through from different lab environments now, especially in the new environment that's set up. And of course, make sure that you use your reverts properly. If you're going through a system, a lot of the students that have been on those systems that have access might leave some leftover stuff, some artifacts as well too. If you want to be able to learn and understand the systems properly going through it, make sure you revert the systems. That will give you a fresh, clean state of how to approach the box and how to assess it going forward instead of cheating yourself and being fair to yourself when you're doing that. So other tips I want to say, enumerate, enumerate, enumerate. You probably have heard this from so many people when they've gone through the lab. Enumeration is key. There are so many different things that could be on each system. Each system has their own different scenario of what you're going to be looking at, and understand the purpose of how these systems are being used, right? Why was that system there? Who set it up? What was the purpose of it being used for? Document everything. There could be some things if you don't document properly that you could miss, right? Certain scans that you also do. Maybe it's a UDP scan. Maybe there's something you can't find, but make sure you actually go ahead and see what that system is doing and make sure that you document it properly in the end. Track your hours. See how long it takes you to go through each system. Maybe you're spending too much time on one system and maybe you should jump to another system just to see what it is and what varies for you. The other thing I also say is don't skip the lab exercises. What's really cool now about the new PWK is that they've added a section called extra miles. Now, depending on the labs that you do, each extra mile actually adds an extra challenge that you can try and you can do. Now, you don't have to put these in the lab report itself, which is nice, but I definitely encourage you to try out those extra miles, see how you could do and apply your practical knowledge going through those itself. They are separate challenges that you can do in the lab. So in order for you to submit your lab report, you need at least still have 10 systems documented of how you assess them. And also you need to complete all the exercises. When you complete all those exercises and also have documented all 10 systems that you assessed in the lab itself, you could be able to get 5 points added to your exam. And the last thing, of course, that I recommend when you're going to the lab is use your reverts, like I said earlier. So let's talk about the exam next. What's going to happen in the exam? So you will have a total of 23 hours and 45 minutes for the exam. You will be proctored during your exam. Webcam and screen sharing software is required. It is a must when you go through the exam itself. Back in the days when I took it, you could be able to have a laptop that was separate for your webcam and then have your system that you were doing everything with Kali or assessing with the system itself when you're in the exam be used separately. Now that's not the case. You cannot do that anymore. You need to at least have your webcam and the screen sharing software tied to your one system that you're doing everything on for the exam. The exam will consist of 5 targets that you get, and these targets range from different operating systems or it could be the different level of difficulty, but really it's going to depend on you going through that. You need at least a minimum of 70 points or higher to pass. Yes, you do. And this is where I recommended you getting that extra 5 points come in because that could be the deciding factor of you passing or you failing. And if you believe you have enough points, then you have another 24 hours to write the report. And the one thing I do recommend is that no matter how many points you get, I'd still say try to write that report. And the reason why is that that'll improve your writing skills, also prepare you for writing the report as well too ahead of time. And what's also really good for you as well too is that even if you fail, you have an understanding of what you wrote in the report, what you did. You may not get the same systems in your next exam or the next one moving forward of whatever attempt you have, but at least gives you an understanding of how your writing is and how your report can be. I've seen many people pass, when they've got all 5 systems right off the bat, and they actually fail the exam because of their reporting. It could be either grammatical errors, not enough details, formatting could be an issue as well too, or not even proper screenshots as well, at least from what I've seen and heard from the students that have taken the course. So exam restrictions, this is another big one that I've seen. You cannot use any of the following systems or following tools in the exam: spoofing, commercial tools, automated exploitation tools, mass vulnerability scanners. Any features that are included in some of the tools that do some of the following things, like auto-pwn or mass vulnerability scanning, spoofing, those are also restricted from being used in the exam. And the reason why they do that is because they want you to be able to go through everything manually, at least try to, and maybe even script your own stuff for what you need. So preparing for the exam, these are my tips on what I want to give to you guys, right? So when you feel comfortable taking the exam, right, schedule it 3 to 4 weeks in advance, because this will give you plenty of time of what you need to prepare for. And once you've gone through the exam guidelines, once you've gone through the course material, once you think you've gone through enough systems in your lab or your PWK time has run out, do a couple things. Complete the lab reported class exercises to get that extra 5 points. Read the guideline requirements as well too before you take the exam. Find a area, or at least have an area or space that you will not be distracted when you're taking your exam. Do not forget to eat or drink. Prepare some snacks, prepare some water, coffee, tea, right? Whatever any type of substance, you need for this exam. Prepare your cheat sheets, notes, tools, exploits. Make sure you have your systems up and ready to go. Snapshots are very important. And I'm going to give you one of my scenarios that happened to me. When I took my PWK exam, the day before I took it, I actually snapshotted my system, had everything, my notes and tools ready to go. And on the morning I was about to take my exam, I turned on my Kali box, everything crashed. I lost everything, files were corrupted. Luckily, I was able to revert back that snapshot and able to get all my stuff back in that clean slate. So snapshots, backups are important to have before you go through that exam. And also start working on your exam report. Have that draft ready, like I said earlier. Get some rest as well too. Don't be overproductive or overthink things the day before your exam. You need break, and you need to have a break mentally as well too. So spend some time with family, friends, loved ones if you can, or at least take a step away from the computer if you can as well. This is one of the big quotes that really helped me as well too, getting ready for the exam, from a buddy of mine, from 0xDF. You're going to run out of ideas before you run out of time. Take breaks, walk away for a bit. Don't be afraid to go to sleep for a few hours, especially if you're stuck, because that's what's going to happen for you in the exam. Remember, try not to Iron Man the exam. Try not to sprint through the exam itself. Take time to understand the systems, review your methodology, review the concepts that you built onto it to help yourself with this exam. And don't feel nervous taking it as well too. Everybody goes through this more than once, or even some people who have gone through it properly will be able to pass on the first try, but that's okay. Failure leads to your success no matter what you try to do and what you brush up into. So I prepared some resources to help you with your OCP. If some of you have seen this already, some of you are probably still getting into it, starting to prepare for OCP, but I wrote a huge guide for last year about the OCP and how to prepare for it, with a variety of different materials for each chapter going through it. I do plan to update this with the new material soon, but I want to give some time for students that are taking the course itself to go through it and give their thoughts and feedback of how the course is for them, how they're liking the material, and also what stuff they like going on in the lab itself. I've also prepared a huge list, and many of you have probably seen this list, of OCP-like VMs. The link that I have right there has a list of vulnerable machines that you can go ahead and practice on through different resources that you can find online and also from offline, like Hub, for instance. Other resources that I have that really helped me prepare for it as well too, personally, before I went through this, was Abache's OSCP guide, Scrundor's Passing OSCP. They were really great guides to help me out. Some books as well too, like Kali Linux Revealed, Attacking Network Protocols. Those books really helped me out trying to get started preparing for the OSCP as well. And then I have some other resources that really helped me out. So the reason why I'm putting these resources here is because one of my biggest issues that I had going through the lab itself and also going through the course material was privilege escalation. You probably have noticed that on Linux privilege escalation, GotMilk has this huge guides on how to prevent Linux systems. That was one of the big guides that really helped me out. And also in the Windows side, I have a couple links in there that also gave me some good inspiration of how to prevent systems on the Windows side and the Linux side, just to help beef up my skills. That really helped out. And on the buffer overflow section, just to get a better understanding of the introductions, Core series really helped me out, just getting understanding of how buffer overflows work, how the process is to go through it, find that exploited space, and try to go ahead and actually get a shell from the box from there. So one of the big things that I want to end this presentation on just before we go ahead and leave is the try harder mindset, right? I know many of you probably have negative views of try harder, don't like the idea of it, and I get that, and I understand that. Some of you have also mentioned the idea of try smarter. Personally, to myself, I think the try harder motto is an amazing motto, and which really helped me out going through the OSCP. And the reason why I say that is because the mindset of try harder means the following things. It means to be persistent, it means to be creative, and also to have a different perspective. And so when you are trying to be persistent in the lab, you know, when something doesn't work the first or second time and you hit a brick wall, remember to take a step back. Remember, mistakes and failures are part of the process. Kind of like I said, when you go through the lab, when you go through the course material, and even your exam, you're going to have those mistakes. You're going to struggle. That's okay. Take the time to learn and understand what you made a mistake on to build your skills and go through this, right? So having this mindset is going to give you the ability to create new ideas and also to have new approaches. And also remember to have patience when you go through this. Keep pushing, don't give up, right? Thomas Edison's quote, "Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always just to try one more time." How many times did he try to go ahead and make the light bulb, right? He went through so many attempts, he went through so many processes just to get one project of his working, to make that invention that we use now today. The next thing, be creative, right? Remember to try new and different things. Get out of your comfort zone of trying some tools that you've used, right? There are new tools out there. There are new scripts out there. There are new exploits out there. Go ahead, give them a shot. If they don't work, that's okay. You know it doesn't work for this system or for this vulnerable app. Try some other ones that are out there. I bet you there's a bunch of people that have written different code for it. And also being perceptive. Situational awareness is a critical skill that all of us need to have in this field. And I think it's really important, not even from a red team or from a pen testing perspective, but even from a blue team perspective. We need to be able to understand situations and we need to find ways to react to them in those times of need. Learn to be efficient and learn to be effective. Don't try to Ironman the courses or the exams you take in the general world. Make time to step back and actively assess the situation to make the good decisions that you need to do. And keep in mind, though, that the skill does not come naturally, but it's important for us to learn it and understand it so we can build it moving forward, especially in the field that we work in today. So with that being said, this is all I have for preparing for the OSCP and going through the new stuff in the material as well too. If anybody has any questions, now's the time. And if anybody needs to ask me anything, I link my handle on Twitter, GitHub, and Discord, and also on NetSec Focus as well too, if you guys want to talk to me there.
You just finished, TJ. You just
Yeah.
rattled through your whole talk in 30 minutes.
Was it 30 minutes exactly?
Well, it's 23 minutes, but you've still got 23.
That's fine. I know I'm going to have a bunch of questions.
Yeah, there's a lot. Let me just collate a few. Morgan, have you got any on hand?
Yeah, I've been dropping some in the Discord. So we've got one here. When will the Joplin OSCP pen test report template drop, TJ? It looks awesome and very helpful.
It is coming soon. I have a few more things I want to add to it, but I can at least give you an idea. There's 40 pages of notes that I took from PWK and also from current assessments that I've been on. I'm currently getting it reviewed by OffSec just to make sure that they are okay with it and then they could be able to support it. So right now at this time, just keep a watch on my Twitter and any updates that come through it, and hopefully I'll have it out soon for you guys.
Okay.
The other thing, like a lot of people have been asking, is I take it you're going to be posting your slides afterwards because obviously you've got a fuck ton of links.
Yep, I will be doing that for sure as well too, and I'll have that posted soon as well.
Another question here. Do you have a preferred screenshot tool in the new 2020 Kali image, or just use Shift, print screen, or Kazam? Go for it. Go.
Kazam is my favorite. I really like how the Kali team actually put that tool in there as well too for the new XFCE desktop environment that they have. Gnome had a really okay one, but the thing I like about Kazam is that it also does screen recording as well too, which is also one thing now to mention that you also really helped me bring up with that question. You can't be able to record your screen as well too during the exam. That is another thing that OffSec as well too has now taken out of doing your exam.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Do the current COVID situation, due to the current due to the current COVID situation, are exams heavily proctored and monitored more than usual, as well as how often are the labs updated for the exam in case you fail your attempt?
So I can't really ask her about the proctoring, but I can say at least the proctoring standards have stayed the same. Nothing has changed from what I know, at least from my perspective. But going to the course material and how that's being made, the PWK lab environment and the course material is supposed to reflect on what current topics and attacks that we see going on in the real world now. So a lot of the material still will apply to what you're going to be doing in the exam. Nothing has really big or changed that's in the exam itself. It's more of you taking the time to go ahead and going through those systems that you will see. So I still encourage you to go ahead and take the course. I still encourage you to go through the new lab environment. It's just both lab environments will still help you prepare for the exam at this time.
Sweet. Another question here. On you go, Chrissy.
God. How many hours should a newbie expect to spend before becoming ready for OSCP?
That's a really good question. Time-wise, that is really up to you. And the reason why I say that is because you will really only know how much time you need to go through to prepare for the course, and also what material and what topics you need to brush up on or even start learning more about. So that's why I recommend tracking your hours, having an Excel spreadsheet, how much time did you spend on a specific topic, whether it's learning more about Python, learning about PowerShell, or learning about specific client-side attacks, right? How to craft your HTA file or macro attack, right? Those are things that you're going to be, you need to prepare for yourself learning wise, but also you will be able to do it through the material as well too, I think.
Sweet. Got another question here. Is there a roadmap that one could follow to ensure they have all the skills needed to pass their exam? They're on their third attempt at the moment, and they've only managed to get to the 10-point box.
I can't really answer any questions about the exam, unfortunately. My only guidance for you, or for the person that asked that question, is figure out what you need to brush up on and figure out what you missed, or what you need to improve on from the exam. And that's what the exam is for. The exam is there to test your skills, to test your knowledge physically and mentally when you go through it. And also to go through on what stuff you may have passed through, what you exceeded on, or what you still need to improve. One of my big things, right, is I didn't use Metasploit enough in the lab network, and I didn't really get to use it much in the exam. But coming out now after I've obtained my OSCP, Metasploit really is still something that people still use, preparing for their stuff, using the exploit multi-handler, using the SOX proxy that's on there. And that stuff I kind of had to learn more outside, and I kind of wish I applied that more into the PWK lab.
Nice. Someone asked a question earlier on. I skipped past it, but they were asking if OffSec have any certifications other than OSCE in between OSCP and OSCE.
Not at this time.
Cool. Any more questions, folks? Questions? As OffSec has updated the PWK course, it is mentioned on the website that the exam is not changed. So how can one assess that they've learned from the new updated material versus the old material?
That is a really good question. I'd say this, right? The best way to look at the updates of how stuff has been changed is review the course syllabus that we have on our OffSec page right now. That will give you a better understanding of what the new course material is like and what you could see on there that's been added.
Sweet. Have we got any more questions on that? I think we've rattled through all the questions in stream.
One in Discord. What is considered manual tools?
Yeah. Well,
yeah, that's right. Which I guess it's down to what's allowed to be used in the exam when it differentiation between automated and manual.
Okay, that makes more sense now, because that's what I was thinking was the difference between automated and manual, right? The reason why I say you should do manual tools, right, is because each tool has its own different functions and own different ways that it works. And it's a great way for you to understand how the tools work, how the commandlets work in a tool, right? Mmap, for instance, let's pick a tool, right? We'll pick Mmap. Mmap has a variety of different command switches in that tool of how to be able to scan not just one IP address, not just one target, multiple targets, and also doing different types of scans, right? there's a lot of tools that are out there, like Sparta, for instance. It's an automated tool that goes ahead and actually does the scans for you. In those scans, right, you might not be able to get the results that you're looking for, or you also may be missing results. So that's why I encourage you, or encourage other students as well too, that are going to be preparing or taking the course, is to use these tools manually. Start getting an understanding and build your knowledge of how the tools work, and also be able to learn more about what to do with specific parts of the tool that you're going to be using. I'm not really a huge fan of automated tools, because automated tools really do skip a lot of things unless you actually know what the tool is actually scanning, or what the tool is actually doing, what the purpose is for it, if that makes sense.
Sweet. So we've got another question here from Mr. Angus Red.
Mhm.
Do you try harder in your day-to-day life, TJ?
No, I don't try harder every day. No, I'm just kidding. I take that mindset and I take that motto with me wherever I go. And I feel like it's been a big part of motto, not just even like with me taking the course and taking the exam, but it's been part of my life for a long time, really going through before the course, starting the course, and after the course, and still continuing now, trying different ways, being creative, having a different perspective on things, and also being persistent on what I try to do.
Sweet. Got another one here. What is the best way to manage self-learning, school, and life in general? I find myself spending too much time in security, not enough time in school, and vice versa. Should I try to schedule my exam weeks out in advance?
I would say schedule your exam at least, like I said, 3 to 4 weeks in advance. Try to be able to find a balance of your skills, taking time going through a box, and also taking time to do the course material. But also when you're preparing for the exam itself, using that lab network, the PWK lab network itself, use it as a way to test yourself going through the lab, getting ready to prepare for the exam. Go through boxes on different ways, right? In the lab network itself, there's probably more than one way to get into those targets or those systems, right? Whether it's through password reuse, whether it's through security misconfiguration, there's always an alternative to find a way to get into those targets.
Sweet. Other questions in here. Are there any specific programming languages that you'd suggest that one should know before entering into PWK?
I'd say it depends. I personally recommend Python, because a lot of exploits are used in Python, right? And get an understanding of how some people write their exploits, what changes you need to make to it. I also say PowerShell is another big thing to add to it. The new PWK has a whole new section on PowerShell scripting, which is really cool, and also using some PowerShell tools as well. But getting at least a good understanding of how PowerShell works, how to write your own commandlets, I think those are big helps as well, helping yourself get a better understanding of the course material moving forward.
I've got a question from Jack in chat. Off topic, but yet sort of relevant. Do you have a mentor or someone who inspired you or motivated you to begin your InfoSec journey?
My mentor was actually my high school teacher. Without him giving me that Backtrack CD and the Backtrack cookbook, I would have never got started to where I am now. And he was actually a Cisco teacher, and he would just teach me more about Cisco fundamentals. So he really went out of his way to do that kind of stuff.
Sweet. Jesus, there's so many questions. They're all flying in now. How would you compare OSCP to GXPN? I assume they're meaning SANS GXPN, and if you've sat either of the two.
I have sat in GXPN, and I will say that GXPN is a little bit more advanced than the PWK, because the PWK is to focus on the pen testing fundamentals. GXPN definitely focuses on exploit development and moving on to some more advanced tools there. So.
Sweet.
Got one on Discord. Are you allowed to write and bring your own tools into the exam?
You can be able to, yes, but I would, if you want to make sure that it doesn't meet any of the exam restrictions, you can definitely ask a student admin or an SA from support. They'll be able to give you a better understanding if that tool is approved or not.
Mm-hmm.
Any more? I think that's most of the questions. We've still got 20 minutes left. You rattled through everything in like 23 minutes flat, so.
Yeah, I figured I'd get more questions, or at least try to have some discussion if anybody wants to bring anything up or have any advice, at least to go ahead and get started with.
I've got a question, I suppose.
Sure.
After OSCP, what was your kind of next steps into, like, what actually, I suppose, rephrase that question. How far into or before your career did you take OSCP, and what were your next steps after OSCP?
So I will tell you, before I got my OSCP, my goal was to get it. But I actually went down the blue team path. I was a SOC analyst for 2 years. working in my career once I graduated college. And going through that, when I started preparing more for OSCP, a lot of the material that I learned for OSCP also helped me with my daily job, trying to detect things, trying to look at specific attacks or events as well too, to help me figure out, how does a hacker actually do this in this type of mindset, or how to run through these things, right? So that really helped me out, moving to my career, becoming an actual full pen tester now. So now I'm starting to move more into exploit development. And my goal and my plan is to actually pursue the OSCE by the end of this year, and also to try to get into the wireless section as well too. So I might actually even do OSWP as well too, and hopefully have a guide for those as well too in the future.
Do you know if they're updating OSWP? Because I sat it a couple of years ago and it was still pretty outdated.
I cannot comment on that, unfortunately.
Okay.
But if any plans or announcements come soon, you will see that on the official communication channels.
Sweet. Question here: Do you need the new material to pass the exam now? If you've sat it previously, if you've had the course previously?
I would say no. If you've already taken the old material and you've already have sat down for the exam, because the exam, like I said, is still the same. The only big differences between the new upgrade of the PWK, which I highly recommend or encourage you that you do, is there's a lot of new material and also a lot of different new techniques and concepts that you should go through and try to look into that maybe could even help you out to your next exam attempt.
Sweet. Have you got any tips for the exam specifically? Anything for people who are concerned about time or pace? I think that you sort of covered that, talking about not sprinting and not.
I could go a little bit more in depth on that. So when I went through my exam attempt, I had a rule of trying 5 things. I don't know if anybody can really see my hand showing 5, but I would try 5 different things, right? 5 different scans, depending on the information I get or from the systems I would see, right? If those 5 things didn't work in that time of what I was doing, I would move on to the next system, right? And go from that next system to the next system until I feel like I had enough information, or I actually pwned the entire system. I got the full access I needed, and I had my proper screenshots I needed to put into the report.
Sweet. I've not spotted any more questions. Chris, have you spotted any more questions?
Hi, there's one. Are there any tutoring services out there? I'm not the best at teaching myself. So Jovenor on Twitch is asking if there's any tutoring services directly for OSCP.
Not at this time. What I'd say is if you need any advice or guidance, you can always talk to the support admins. They are usually very kind and also gentle, that are able to help you out or support you, although they won't give you the exact answer you may be looking for, but they'll at least give you some tips and ideas of what to look through next. The purpose of the course itself is to be self-paced, to be onto your learning. But there's always places as well too to get guidance on trying to support you, trying to go through those systems that you may have trouble with.
Sweet. I think that's all the questions.
One here. Can we extend the lab after expiration by paying extra?
Yes, you can. So if you ever want to extend your lab extension as well too, you should have received an email in your original email when you got your course that should give you a purchase link. And in that purchase link, you can actually go ahead and extend your lab extension from what you there. But that depends on the material that you've gone through. So.
Awesome, thanks.
I think that wraps it up potentially. Oh wait, there's another question. Shit.
they're just gonna keep coming every single time you say, I think we're about to wrap it up. It's like, oh, there's one more.
I mean, we're still within time. We've still got 20 odd minutes. It's all
absolutely.
good.
So keep them coming. Keep them coming. They're good.
How much is how? I need to actually phrase this so it makes sense. How different is the new PWK and the e-learning penetration testing professional in terms of updated study material? I think they probably can.
I'd say between that material when I took it to the new PWK material now, Active Directory attacks is really big. There's a whole section just getting started of how to access an Active Directory environment, how to be able to access a domain controller, what attacks you could be able to do as well too that are specifically on there. And also focus more in depth as well on PowerShell Empire as well too, going ahead and actually setting up your own post-exploitation framework as well too with that tool.
Cool. Right, 4 other questions have landed since that question was asked. I think I'm going to turn on slow mode in chat so I can actually see it. 2 seconds. Slow. There we go. Right. So, question: what is the toughest machine, and how did you approach it without revealing anything about the specific box?
Toughest machine that I did in the PWK environment, I have to say, was Humble. Humble was it's one of the big 4 boxes, and it's in the new PWK as well. That was a tough one for me. But getting to understand the person who actually um, found the vulnerability for that box was really cool.
Nice. I was wondering how well versed in networking do you have to be before you take the course? Could a noob take it without any networking experience?
I'd say at least have some understanding. And when I mean understanding, I say understand how, IP addresses work, how subnetting works, how the flow of network communication works, right? How like networking is sent, right? How packets are being sent forward with your SYN, SYN-ACK, and your ACK packets, right? Also understand the different protocols that are out there, right? We have a total of 65,533 different protocols running on TCP and on UDP with different ports that what different purposes they're supposed to be doing. So if you try to go in with the PWK with no networking experience at all, it could be a little bit tough for you in the challenge. Although the courses can walk you through some of it, it's good to at least have some type of understanding, so it'll get you ahead of the course more properly, and it also gives you a better understanding of what they're going to be discussing in the material itself.
Right. Okay. More questions. People keep asking more questions. On you go, Chrissy.
I've got one here from Jack. Yeah. Any thoughts on implementing GNS3, EVE-NG, and creating your own networks and practice vulns exploits for OSCP?
That is up to you entirely as a person. Having that type of setup is great. Having a home lab is definitely great to have that all set up. I even have my own for what I was doing. So I think that will give you a better understanding experience, of how to prepare yourself prerequisitely, once you are ready to get a better understanding of the networking fundamentals, the operating systems, right? Doing a little bit of programming will get you ready and ahead to start the course. But that really all depends on how much time and effort you're going to put into that as well, too, preparing for it.
Cool, thanks. Oh, just following that, what CTFs do you recommend to help prepare for the OSCP?
So there's a lot of good CTFs that are out there. Pico CTF was a great starting one for me during my high school years, especially. And there's a lot of good free-based ones that are out there. If you ever want to find any good CTFs on there that are around, CTF Time, I believe, has a really good set of upcoming CTFs that come out that usually people go through.
A question here: what search would you recommend doing after OSCP?
That really depends on to that person or what you really want to do or what kind of passion you have. Some people, for instance, that I've talked to over the years, they say, oh, I really like to get into web exploit, web development, right? Or, finding web attacks or finding web exploits, right? And they go down, the web route, or some people like to go into the exploit development route. That really depends on what you want to do. Or even further advance your skills, in network penetration testing, mobile pen testing. That's really depends on you and what you really want to do. For me personally, I think my big thing now is getting into exploit development, and that's something I want to start doing next. I did take the AWAE course. I really enjoyed it, especially going through and analyzing the source code that we're given for each challenge, and also made you really think outside the box of what you were looking at. But I'm probably going to come back to that soon because I feel like I have a much bigger passion in exploit development now, since that's what I've been doing more in my current role for fun, really.
Nice. One here. Does the 5 machines for the exam include the buffer overflow, or is the buffer overflow machine separate and you have to hack 5?
I cannot answer that. The only thing I can answer, at least, is you will have 5 targets that you will have to assess.
Cool. Follow up from that is the course material mentions Kali a lot. Is there a reason why you need to use Kali, or is it you can use anything you want?
Like I mentioned earlier, you can use whatever distro you want to use. Kali is the big one that we use in the course because that's what we teach about too. There's a whole chapter based on Kali, where to find specific tools, review different docs, how to build your own custom Kali. Those little things are in there, but we refer everything to the Kali's websites, that are there. And the other thing too is that support admins will be able to support you better because that's the operating system that they'll be able to support you on. You know, in case you have any VPN issues, any troubleshooting issues that you have getting into the lab environment or even accessing the lab environment, that's the system that they'll be able to understand and troubleshoot with you.
Okay. Question here, is OSCP a prerequisite for attempting OSCE?
I would think so personally myself. Unfortunately, there's no really roadmap to, what to go after next, for the specific course that OffSec has. But I would say definitely if you want to get into exploit development, go ahead and do OSCE. If you want to be able to understand more web attacks, understand white box web app pen testing, definitely go ahead and take OSWE or AWAE, right? If you want to get into wireless, do OSWP. Like I mentioned earlier, it really depends on what you want to do next that OffSec Security has for courses and also what cert you want to go for next that they have.
Sweet. If you currently have the old report and upgrade to the new PWK, will the old report, I assume they're talking about the lab report, qualify for 5 points, or will they need to recomplete a new report to qualify for the 5 points?
I was actually waiting for this question. Yes, it still counts for what you, so when you take your next exam, that lab report that you did earlier that completed all the exercises on there and also assessing the 10 systems, that still counts for your 5 points, possibly once you submit it with your report.
Sweet. Question here about the exam. Can you use a multiple display setup during the exam, or is it restricted to one screen only?
You can be able to use multiple displays for your exam. The only thing I would totally recommend that you make sure is that the proctor is aware that you are using multiple screens, because their software that they need to use will be able to review all screens of what you're doing for your assessment. Otherwise, they could revoke your exam attempt.
Sweet. Anything proctor specific wise exam takers should be aware of? I hear the proctoring software is a Chrome plugin. Should it be okay to full screen our VM, or will we need the software visible on the host operating system?
My recommendation is that when you are going to be starting your exam, I would say go ahead and get your software set up 30 minutes before your exam and work with the proctor on that and seeing what the proctor says. I don't really have a full answer for that. But I know that the proctoring team will have a better answer for you when you do that.
There's one that's just coming here. Is there a minimum recommendation yourself? Have you got a minimum recommendation of the amount of machines that you should hack out of 75 before attempting the exam?
Very good question. I say that really, like, it's another depending question. It depends really on you. Some people say the minimum, systems that you need to assess is 30 machines. However, I say go through them all. Each system has its own different scenario, its own different way of getting into the system. And really, it's a fun lab to be in. You have systems with multiple domain controllers and different environments that you could assess and go into. So I'd say try to go through all of them as you can, or at least, go through as many systems as you can where you think you are comfortable to take the exam. And if you have leftover lab time and you fail the exam, that still gives you the opportunity to go through the other systems that are in the lab to help you prepare for your next exam attempt.
Question here about preparing for the OSCP meta preparation. Is TryHackMe a good platform to help with OSCP, and consequently is it Hack the Box equally as good, or have you got any other further recommendations?
This is a question I don't know if I really want to answer, because I feel like there's so many platforms that are out there that are trying to help prepare people for OSCP. It's really kind of tough, but it really also depends on you. When I went through it myself, I used, VolnHub and Hack the Box as my preparations of myself, to go ahead and, prepare for the PWK exam. That's why I have that list. But that really just depends on you and also the community's reviews on how they go through that.
Okay. There's a joke question in here. So, are there any industry recognized certifications that have a mantra of try less, maybe tomorrow?
Oh my God, I don't know if I want to answer that question. A lot of the community has a bunch of different responses for that, and I'll let the community answer that question for that person.
Sweet. I don't know if there's any other questions. I say that now. There's going to be about 9 that will land in the next couple of seconds.
If anybody has other questions, anybody can ask me, later. I'm going to be, hanging out in the Many Hats Club general voice chat. So if anybody wants to ask me any questions on voice or in the general voice chat, they can certainly do that if needed.
How long do you ideally spend on writing the report after you've sat the exam?
So I did the entire exam and report with a total of 38 hours. And that's really my fault because I really should have slept after I got, I thought that I had enough points, right, to go through the exam. But that really depends on you and how you balance your time and how to go through it, and that's something you can build off of.
Okay. What other mindset / mantra do OSCP provide other than the legendary try harder?
That is the really big motto that we have, and also our core values that you can also find on our website as well too, of how we be able to bring the community together, how we can be able to grow and adapt, and also be able to push each other as well to learn more, especially in this field.
From the good old TMHC mods, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Tyrannosaurus Rex. Even though it's got little hands, it's still the giant.
Another one in here. What is a computer?
No, not answering that. If there's any other OSCP, PWK questions or any prep questions that I can answer, this is your time to shout them now. So, and I'm looking at the chat too, just seeing a lot of the questions here. Don't be scared about going through this course. It's just like almost any other certification that you go out there for. You just have to take the time to go through it, prepare for it, understand the material that they teach you in it, and when you're comfortable and ready to earn the exam, do the best you can at least. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Well, we've got 8 minutes to go. Do we? What was that, man? We can wrap up. If there are any final questions, I will ask them, or we can do the magical. Send me the command. I need to run.
TJ, by the way, absolutely fantastic talk, and thank you for coming on and taking all these questions as well. Like for at least 20 minutes. This must be quite hard.
I prepared this talk to at least have some questions for sure, and at least to answer the community. That a lot of people go through this course a lot, and I know a lot of people struggle through this. And my goal at least is to help prepare the future and the community that want to do this. This is something I think everyone should try at least. But the course is also not for everyone as well too. But for if you have at least a good strong passion and a good understanding of what you need to prepare for this course, then you will definitely enjoy the course and learn from it. And yeah, you're gonna stress, you're gonna struggle, but most importantly, I want to really thank the Many Hats Club for having me on here, speaking with you guys, talking about the PWK and how to prepare for it. I know we're all going through some tough times right now, but I know certainly that we'll get through it, in the future as well too with this.
Oh, right. Questions are flown in again, as one would think.
You should have escaped when you had the chance.
Yeah, should have ran. Does the OSCP make sense for someone who is interested in getting into cloud security?
Yes, definitely. I think for sure. As we now start seeing more systems move into the cloud, right, in AWS and Google Suite, and also in DigitalOcean, right, we need to have people to be able to assess those systems that are in the cloud and those virtual private spaces as well too. And I think it's really important, at least to have that, the fundamentals, the hacker mindset that you take in the PWK. It's definitely going to help you apply that methodology and your concepts as well too, going into those cloud environments as well. That's a very good question.
Okay, probably last question or so, and then we can transition over to Stu. How did the OSCP help getting into the job field?
It really helped me. I will say that in order for me to be a pen tester in the private sector where I was, it definitely opened a lot of doors for me once I obtained that cert and earned it properly, and also in fairness as well with it. So once I immediately got my OSCP, I was hired on 2 weeks later to be a pen tester in the private sector team that I worked for. And really, I enjoyed working with that team ever since, and also working with the offset guys as well too.